I would like to welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. I wanted to mention, what is the reason that we are here today. Yesterday we started an anti-poverty summit, and I want to thank the Heritage Foundation. I want to thank the Republican Study Committee for their great work. In the last 40 to 50 years, this country has spent over $15 trillion in a war on terror. On a war on poverty. And in that war on poverty, if you look at the results, if you look at what we have to show for that, it is woeful. We have more people living in poverty today than when we started. And so this summit was not about telling people what policies we are going to push or what policies we are going to roll out. This summit was about listening. This summit was about bringing organizations from around the country who are doing some phenomenal things so that we as members of Congress can listen. As many of you who I might know, some of you I might not know, my name is Steve Southerland. I represent Florida's 2nd Congressional District. And as an individual whose heart hurts because people, and oftentimes in many communities around this country, do not have the opportunity to improve their plight, it's a burden. It is something we must address. And so in just a few moments, I'm going to introduce some people who were critically important to the successes of the last 2 days. And we're going to let them speak and tell you about some of the incredible successes they are having by moving people from poverty into a frame of mind, into a walk of life where they can experience, through the pursuit of happiness, they can experience a brighter and better future for their individual selves as well as their families. I want to say that the Center for Neighborhood Enterprise, Bob Woodson is with us today. He'll speak in just a few moments, and he has invited people from around the country, from San Antonio, from Hartford, Connecticut, amazing Denver, Colorado, to share with us some of the successes that they are having. But before Bob comes up and speaks, I would like to introduce to you the chairman of the Republican Study Committee, an individual who I respect, an individual you certainly know, but at his heart, an individual who cares about ridding our country of poverty and some of the reasons that people find themselves in a multi-generational environment of poverty. So without any further ado, I introduce my good friend and the chairman of the Republican Study Committee, Jim Jordan.
Thank you, Stevie. I'll be real quick here. I want to thank Bob and the Center for Neighborhood Enterprise, the Heritage Foundation, and mostly I want to thank Steve Southerland, who has a heart for this. He's got a heart the size of Texas, and he cares about this issue and learning about what works. One of the messages came through loud and clear in the last 2 hours we just spent with all these wonderful people, is that the status quo isn't necessarily working. What they're doing out on the streets, working with individuals, working with families, working in communities, is making a difference. And so that's what we want to learn about, because it is about figuring out ways we can save money and better use taxpayer dollars. Most importantly, it's about figuring out ways we can help people escape a life of poverty and get on to experiencing the American dream. So we heard all kinds of great things. I mean, one line that I actually wrote down was, compassion without expectations equals enablement. And we got to do it right, and these guys are doing it right. So it's great to be a part of this. I want to again thank Steve Southerland for his leadership in launching this effort, and the Republican Study Committee is proud to be a part of this. And with that, I'll yield back to our sponsor here.
The gentleman that, thank you, Jim. The gentleman that I'm about to introduce you to is certainly no newcomer to this topic. Several months ago, I had the privilege of meeting Bob Woodson and learning about the Center for Neighborhood Enterprise and the incredible successes that they're having, not just isolated in one part of our country, but successes they're having around the entire country in all parts of the United States. So to explain a little bit about what he does, how he does it, and the successes that they have now enjoyed, it is with great pride that I introduce Bob Woodson.
Hey, Bob.
Thank you. My name is Bob Woodson. I'm the president and founder of the Center for Neighborhood Enterprise. It's a national nonprofit that I had founded 30 years ago. After I'm a veteran of the civil rights movement in the 60s, having led demonstrations. But I realized, though, that after many years, that many of those who suffered and sacrificed most benefited least from the change. That race alone was not just their chief barrier, that there was poverty, there was disadvantage. And so I shifted gears and began to work on behalf of low-income people of all races. But I also recognized that America is a very compassionate country. But our strategies over the last 50 years have not only not improved a lot of poor people, but in many ways have helped injured with the helping hand. The traditional approach to helping the poor is to go into low-income communities and do surveys, what I call failure studies, to try to find out how many people are raising children that are in households where they're dropping out of school or in jail and drugs. And then once these problems are presented to well-intentioned professionals, they then parachute their solutions into these communities with the expectation that the poor would participate. And so we have created an industry out of serving poor people where 70 cents of every dollar that is intended to help the poor goes not to the poor, but those who serve poor people. They ask not which problems are solvable, but which ones are fundable. So what the center has been doing over the past 30 years is we've reversed that. We go into low-income neighborhoods and we do capacity studies. We go in and ask our grassroots leaders, how many people are raising children that are not dropping out of school, that are not in jail and drugs, and what is it that you're doing that's different than your neighbors? And then we bring, and then they are the real experts. And so we are act like a Geiger counter that comes into these communities to study success. If you wanted to learn how to play the piano, would you go to 5 people who failed and said, let me learn from your failure? Or would you go to the one person who has mastered the instrument? Well, the people I'm about to introduce you to have mastered the ability to help redeem people in the midst of drug-infested, crime-ridden neighborhoods. Drugs do not commit drug addicts, just like guns do not commit killers. It is the attitude, values, and beliefs of the people that determines how they either achieve or not achieve in those environments. The very fact that you have super wealthy people who are taking their lives in the presence of all the material wealth speaks volumes about the limitations of just looking at a person's condition in terms of the amount of income that they have. So what I'd like to do, what we have done at the center is that we have gone all over this nation and trained 2,500 grassroots leaders in 39 states. And we have then helped to fund some of these programs. But to give you an idea of what we presented to members of Congress about solutions, I want to introduce Pastor Shirley Holloway from Washington, D.C., and after that, Arson Ortiz from the Rock Organization in Virginia, and Jubal Garcia from San Antonio, Texas. And I'd ask them to come forward to just share what they have shared with members of Congress.
Sure, thank you. Good morning to you. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Shirley Holloway. I started House of Help City of Hope, Incorporated 501c3 back in 1995. I saw a need in Washington, D.C. I saw gangbangers, drug addicts, prostitutes who really wanted to change but did not have the understanding or the wisdom or the help. And so House of Help City of Hope opens its doors to men, women, and children, domestic violence, homelessness, drug addiction. And what we say to them is this: no matter what your present situation is, if you want help, all you have to do is open your heart and accept what your problem is. Whatever your problem is, God just wants to acknowledge it, and then He'll give you the wisdom and the knowledge and the grace and the favor to get out of it. We've seen over 25,000 people come off drugs, become fathers, husbands, brothers, mothers, daughters, entrepreneurs, homeowners. And I believe that this initiative is going to change our country. I believe that people want help. They just need to know where to go to get help and how to handle the help. God bless you, and thank you for this opportunity.
All right. Hello, my name is Pastor Arson Ortiz. I know what you're thinking. What kind of pastor has a name Arson? A Mexican pastor. I'm the youth director at Richmond Outreach Center. We also call it The Rock in Richmond, Virginia. Just a quick background. I was raised and involved in gangs and drugs. The last grade I completed was 8th grade. I really had just a horrible outlife. You know, my retirement plan was either the cemetery or it was the state penitentiary, because that's where all my best friends were going. But a mentor, a life coach, a pastor found out about me, and he helped me. And what he did is help teach me what it was to be a real man, to give me traits and qualities that I desperately needed but didn't have because there was no role models in my area where I grew up. And what he did was he changed my life and developed me to become a life changer. And today, that's what The Rock does in Richmond, Virginia. We have over 150 programs. The Rock actually is the fastest growing church in America. Go Rock. And what we do is have all sorts of programs. One of my favorite programs is our bus ministry program. It's our preventive maintenance program where we bus anywhere from 1,000 to 1,200 kids from the inner city, from the worst, most impoverished area. We pick them up on buses. We send over 150 volunteers knocking on doors and giving them hope. We build relationships and find out what their problems are, what's going on in their life. You know, we go to their house so we can find out, oh, you don't have food, so you need some food. Oh, mom's not here, so you need someone to help you in your situation. Over 1,200 kids every single week. Staying consistent and building relationship has been the key to our success. And what we found with that is we found all sorts of success. All our number rates, murder rate is down in Richmond, burglar rate is down in Richmond. All the different numbers that were negative are now turning positive. And we believe that we have a lot to do with that, and programs like the ones behind me have a lot to do with that. We do appreciate everybody's time. We thank congressmen and all the organizations coming together to make this happen. We know that teamwork makes the dream work. Amen.
Morning, my name is Jubal Garcia. I'm the pastor of Outcry in the Barrio in San Antonio, Texas. In 1971, Pastor Freddie and his wife Nympha began Outcry in the Barrio, a program to help drug addicts off the streets and alcoholics come in. We believe at Outcry in the Barrio that there's a solution, a positive solution for drug addiction, and it's found in the person of Jesus Christ. At Outcry in the Barrio in San Antonio, the addict is able to come in and live free of charge while he withdraws from drugs and readjusts to society. He's under the supervision of house parents, while other ex-drug addicts who completed the program minister to him also. Today we have over 100 satellites all over the world, the United States of America, that are reaching out to drug addicts and alcoholics on the streets. Our success rate in San Antonio is anywhere from 60 to 80% for people that complete the one-year program. And I believe we're working and we're having success because we found a positive cure for drug addiction in the person of Jesus Christ. We believe that when you rehabilitate a drug addict, you've got to minister to three needs. You've got to meet their physical needs, you've got to meet their emotional needs, but you also have got to meet their spiritual needs. We believe that we have a mind that needs education, a body that needs food, but also a spirit that needs God. We differ from government programs on two issues. We disagree on two things. Number one, why people take drugs, and number two, what is the solution for drug addiction? Government programs believe that psychology calls it a mental or an emotional disorder. Philosophy calls it irrational thinking. Sociology calls it a product of your environment. But the Bible calls it sin. And we believe that Jesus is the answer. We want to thank you because we believe that we're coming together with the Center for Neighborhood Enterprises, with the Heritage Foundation, with the members of Congress. We believe that we're putting together a network that if we can continue to work together, we're going to make an incredible change in this country. And we thank you for your time. God bless you guys.
Let me just add, the three people you heard from were all ministries. Most of the organizations that we have around this country are not ministries, but they are grassroots organizations that have demonstrated to people that they have made a long-term commitment to people. The average tenure for a person running a grassroots organization is about 22 years. So the people that we serve are not just there for the life of a program, but they've made a lifetime commitment. And we think that this is an unused, untapped resource that the nation has, and we're trying to work with members of Congress to see if we can't change that. Thank you. We take any questions?
Sure.
You mentioned that this was more about listening, but where are the
areas of policy overlap with the Republican Study Committee, and obviously there's been a lot of talk about budget cuts to social safety net programs, and did you come out with any proposals that you're going to introduce as a result of this summit?
No, today, yesterday and today was about listening to the things that are working. So much of what we do here in Washington, D.C. is appropriate dollars to failed programs. We appropriate failure oftentimes. And so one of the things we are having to do is, and I will tell you that the financial situation that we find ourselves in this country with $16 trillion in debt and budget after budget after budget year, we're running trillion-dollar deficits. We have to look at what is effective. We have to look at what is working. And so we have to make some hard decisions, distinguish between what is good and what is best. And so the purpose of this summit, and I know this is a novel idea here on Capitol Hill, is to bring people that are actually effective, bring people that are maximizing what they have and turning what they have and being good stewards of it into changed lives. Now, I've been here 18 months, and much of what we do here is nuts. It's crazy. And so, look, we have to listen before we act. We have to, there's a process down, I know that I'm a hunter, and there's a process I go through as a hunter. We ready, we aim, and then we shoot. Washington doesn't do that. We shoot, and then we shoot, and then we shoot. Oftentimes in the dark. And so the whole purpose of this process was to begin a process of listening, gathering information, doing our due diligence, so that when we do introduce policy, it is based on good intel. It's based on things that make sense. And when you listen to these statistics about the crime rates in Richmond, Virginia, and I've been there. I've looked at the schools that they have been in, and you look at these schools that were the most ridden with crime, most ridden with absenteeism. You can't teach a child if they're not in school. And to listen to how the school board down there is embracing this because it's effective. It's things that we have to look at. We don't have the luxury of appropriating dollars for programs that don't work anymore. Yes, sir.
Well, you're about to take a vote later today on an appropriations that just basically stays the course until March. What do you think about that? When is change, the kind of change that you're looking for, going to come to the appropriations?
Well, one thing I've learned as a freshman member of Congress is that when we're 50 days out from an election, politics starts to take over. Okay? And I know this. Discretion is the better part of valor. Am I happy that we are, look, in many ways, we arranged the chairs on the deck of the Titanic. Okay? So we're going to have to make sweeping changes. And I know this, that when we've got millions upon millions upon millions of Americans living in desperation, with no connection to hope, with no correct connection with a positive future, I know that when our boat's taking on water, we've got to fill in the biggest holes first. And I know of no better stimulus for America than to put these individuals who are living in desperation and despair, to introduce them to a lifestyle, to a way of life that will be conscious contributors to our society. That is the definition of stimulus. So, look, I think talking about the CR, talking about the budgets. Look, I'm not pleased with where we are as a country financially. But today is talking about something that I think is of greater importance that will lead us to economic sustainability, that will reduce the jobless numbers, that will reduce the people in poverty and the people in homelessness. That right there, start putting a dollar value on that.
Congressman, you mentioned appropriating failure. What programs do you think specifically are doing that?
Well, look, I know I serve on agriculture, I serve on natural resources, I serve on transportation and infrastructure. We just went through a transportation bill. We just appropriated, just went through a farm bill. And I have to tell you, there's a lot of things in those bills that I don't agree with. I think, I'm sorry?
Yeah. May I just answer that, Congressman, if I would? I'll give you an example of one program that's been around for ages, and that is this country's foster care system. We spend $74 billion every year, and we have 400,000 children who are trapped in this system. 25,000 of them age out when they no longer have any financial value to the system, and 23% become homeless. So 70% of the people in our nation's prisons have spent some time in the foster care system. So our group has the First Baptist Church of Lincoln Gardens. One church has taken 280 of these children out of the system and put them in adoptive homes. We want to take that model and expand it throughout this nation, because the more a child gets dysfunction, the more they decline psychologically, the more the subsidy goes up. So there's perverse incentives for moving a child into a home when the system collects more money as they become more dysfunctional. There's an example of a program that really needs examination.
So are you saying, though, that the government should no longer be involved in the foster?
No, they should have a strategy for allowing these children to leave the system. They should support programs that causes fewer children to come into the system and provide more financial incentives for those children to move from foster care into adoption, rather than keeping the incentive systems on the side of dysfunction. If a child comes in, they get $50,000 a year. It can go up to $150,000 if the child continues to decline. Just one example.
Does the Center for Neighborhood Enterprise or any of the member organizations that spoke today, do they receive federal, state, or local funds?
We receive a minimum of federal funds, but the majority of our funds, we have contracts with school boards. Most of our money comes from private sources. The Bradley Foundation, individuals contribute to us.
How much in federal funds do you receive?
I think less than $600,000 out of a $5 million budget.
And what does that come from?
80% of that money goes to schools.
Oh, no, what federal funding source?
Yeah, the federal Department of Justice. But 80% of that money goes into those schools so they can hire young people as junior youth advisors. So that's 80% of that money goes into those schools so they can hire some of these young people.
You mentioned the foster care improvement. What are some of the other recommendations from the people who work to improve poor people's lives every day? What do you urge Congress to do today?
Again, this was really an information tour. It was not. We're going to collect the testimonies of our people, and we're going to be putting together a policy agenda. But that was not the purpose of this gathering today. This was the information gathering. We're going to take this information, synthesize it, and then think about what are the policy recommendations.
But another thing, I think that what we heard today, the successes that we learned about today, hopefully will spur members of Congress with the interest of going out to where these people are really putting shoe leather to their talk. And so to actually see what they're doing, to go to their cities, to witness their programs, to talk to the people who have been affected positively, so that when we make decisions based on policy, which, there's a lot of policies being introduced here, but that those policies that we're introducing are based on good data, based on effectiveness. I mean, you asked me, what things do I see? I mean, just as I go through the transportation bill, I'm thinking about that. I mean, Amtrak lost $60 million in food. How did 3,000 people lose $60 million in food service? With the expectation that they're appropriated more. Really? Really? So, anyway.
Just to follow up, what about poverty-specific programs? Are there any of those specifically that you think are contributing, like you said, to failure?
Well, I know in the agriculture, in the Farm Bill, obviously much of what we do is deals a lot with the rural counties, in the rural areas around our country. So, what we're having to do is with a limited with a limited resource of money and the challenges that we're faced, the purpose of this summit is to find ideas that are effective. Rather than just saying, you know what, as we do every year, we're just going to fund up, price up, plus up, programs that don't show any results. My question to you is, when are even you, as reporters, going to say, you know what, when we spent $15 trillion on a war against poverty and have what we have to show for it, when do we have to ask questions about those individual programs? And that's what this whole thing was about today and yesterday. What things are being done out there that do change lives positively and change the perpetuation of dependence from one generation to the next? What changes lives positively? I think that's a fair question. All right, we're going to be, look, let me say this. I talk to you all the time. There's some people behind me that are doing some phenomenal things. And so what I would like for you to do is speak to these individuals. These are the heroes. These are the champions. These are the people making a difference in the lives of the people in their communities. So thank you for being here, but I would encourage you, please speak to these people who are rich in experience. And maybe you'll get an idea of some of the things that we would like to see Congress do going forward. This is where the answers lie, not in me. The answers lie from these people. It's a novel idea that we listen to the American people. Congress doesn't like to do that very much. And so the purpose of this summit was to listen to the American people. So thank you all for being here. There will certainly be more to come. And I'd like to thank, again, the Heritage Foundation. I'd like to thank the Republican Study Committee. I'd like to thank Bob and his great work at the Center of Neighborhood Enterprise. And I wish you all a great day. Thank you.